You've been lied to about discipline. The grind, the white-knuckle control, the punishing schedules, they're not the path to freedom. They're the cage. What if true mastery, true liberation, comes not from more control, but from letting go? This is the discipline paradox, and it will change everything you think you know about success. Chapter 1. The Tyranny of Forced Discipline. You wake up at 5 a.m. because someone told you that's what successful people do. You force yourself through a workout you hate, eat the same bland breakfast, drink the same green juice, and sit through hours of work you're not passionate about, all while repeating the mantra, discipline equals success. But here's the truth they don't want you to hear. That kind of discipline is killing you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like a slow leak in a tire. You're not building resilience, you're building resentment. And one day, you'll snap. You'll sleep until noon. You'll eat an entire pizza. You'll skip the gym for a week. And then you'll beat yourself up, calling yourself weak, undisciplined, a failure. But that's not what happened. What happened is that you finally hit the limit of a broken system. The tyranny of forced discipline is not strength. It's self-sabotage disguised as virtue. Let me be clear. Discipline is not the enemy. Discipline is essential. But there's a massive difference between discipline that comes from alignment and discipline that comes from force. Forced discipline is what happens when you try to control yourself like a machine. When you ignore your energy, your emotions, your biology, and your personality. When you follow someone else's blueprint and expect it to work for you. That's not discipline. That's denial. And it doesn't work, not long term. Look at the people who burn out after 2 years of hustle culture. They worked 80-hour weeks. They woke up at 4 a.m. every day. They said no to every distraction. And for what? A promotion? A paycheck? A sense of accomplishment that lasted 3 days? And then what? Exhaustion, anxiety, depression, broken relationships, a body falling apart. That's not success. That's self-destruction with a productivity soundtrack. Here's the reality. Forcing yourself into rigid routines is like trying to control a wild river by building a dam. At first, it seems to work. The water flows where you want it to. But pressure builds, and eventually the dam breaks. And when it does, the flood is worse than if you had just worked with the river in the first place. Your energy, your motivation, your desire, these are not enemies to be conquered. They are signals to be read. They are the current of the river. And if you fight them, you will lose. You think you need more willpower, more structure, more rules. But what you actually need is awareness. You need to stop forcing and start understanding. Why are you tired at 3 p.m.? Why do you procrastinate on certain tasks? Why do you crave sugar when you're stressed? These aren't failures of discipline. These are messages. Your body is speaking. Your mind is speaking. But you're too busy forcing yourself to listen. Let me give you a real-world example. I worked with a client. Let's call him Mark. Mark was a high performer, VP at a tech company, married, 2 kids. On paper, he had it all. But he was miserable. He was waking up at 5 a.m. to work out, eating at his desk, skipping family dinners, working until midnight. He thought he was being disciplined, but he was exhausted, irritable, disconnected. His marriage was suffering. He hadn't played with his kids in months. And worst of all, he felt guilty every time he took a break, because in his mind, rest was weakness. So we did something radical. We stopped forcing. We started listening. We looked at his energy patterns. We asked, when do you feel most focused? When do you feel most creative? When do you feel most alive? And guess what? Mark wasn't a morning person. He didn't feel sharp until 9 a.m. His best ideas came in the evening. He was more productive in 90 minutes of focused work than he was in 8 hours of grinding. But he had been forcing himself into a routine that worked for someone else, not him. So we changed it. We moved his workout to 4 p.m. We scheduled deep work for his peak hours. We protected family time. We built in real breaks. And you know what happened? His productivity went up. His mood improved. His relationship with his wife got better. He started enjoying his life. Was he still disciplined? Absolutely. But now his discipline was aligned with who he actually was, not who he thought he should be. That's the key. That's what changes everything. You don't need more willpower. You need more alignment. You don't need to force yourself into someone else's routine. You need to build a life that works with your nature, not against it. Because when you're aligned, discipline isn't a battle, it's a choice. And you have a choice. You don't need their permission. You don't need to prove anything by suffering. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. if you're not a morning person. You don't need to work 12-hour days to prove you're committed. You don't need to say yes to everything to prove you're capable. That's not strength. That's fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of failing. Fear of being seen as weak. But here's the truth. It's not about weakness. It's about discipline. Real discipline. The kind that comes from knowing yourself. The kind that comes from making conscious choices. The kind that comes from building systems that work for you, not against you. So here's what you need to do. Right now, today. Stop forcing. Start observing. Pay attention to your energy, your mood, your focus. When are you at your best? When are you at your worst? What gives you energy? What drains you? What kind of work excites you? What kind exhausts you? These answers are not trivial. They are the foundation of real discipline. And then make adjustments. Small ones. Start with one thing. If you hate morning workouts, move them. If you're not a coffee person, don't force it. If you work better with music, use it. If you need silence, protect it. These aren't luxuries. They're necessities. They're the difference between a life of resentment and a life of purpose. You have a choice. Every single day, you have a choice. You can continue forcing yourself into a system that doesn't work, or you can start building one that does. You can keep pretending that burnout is a badge of honor, or you can admit that sustainability is smarter. You can keep chasing someone else's version of success, or you can define your own. That's the key. That's what changes everything. When you stop forcing and start aligning, discipline stops being a burden and starts being a tool for building the life you actually want, not the one you think you should want, not the one someone else sold you, but the one that's right for you. And that is real power. Chapter 2. The Counterintuitive Power of Surrender. You think discipline is about forcing yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. when your body is screaming for more sleep. You think discipline is white-knuckling through the gym when your mind is checked out. You think discipline is punishing yourself for skipping the meal plan or missing the deadline. That's not discipline. That's war. And you're losing because you're fighting against yourself. True discipline is not about control. True discipline is about alignment. It's about surrender. You have a choice. You can keep dragging yourself through the mud every single day, or you can stop. You can stop resisting what is, stop pretending you're someone you're not, and start working with who you actually are. That's the key. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is the most disciplined thing you will ever do, because it requires honesty. It requires you to stop lying to yourself about what you want, about who you are, about what actually works for you. You don't need their permission. You don't need the world's permission to change. You don't need validation from your past, from your failures, from the people who said you couldn't do it. You just need to stop fighting yourself. When you stop, something shifts. You tap into a powerful, effortless energy that flows naturally. But you can't access it while you're at war with your own nature. Let me give you a real example. A man comes to me. He says he can't stick to his routine. He tries to work out in the morning, but he hits snooze 5 times. He tries to eat clean, but by 8 p.m., he's ordering pizza. He feels weak. He feels like a failure. I ask him one question. When do you actually have energy? He looks at me confused. What do you mean? When do you feel alert? When do you feel motivated? When do you actually want to move your body? He thinks. Honestly, it's not in the morning. I'm never hungry when I wake up. I don't feel like moving until late afternoon. And I'm most focused at night. There it is. He had been trying to force himself into a mold that wasn't his. He thought discipline meant doing what everyone else said he should do. But discipline means doing what works for you. So we flipped it. He started working out at 5 p.m. He skipped breakfast and ate his first meal at noon. He did his deep work after dinner when his mind was sharp. Within weeks, everything changed. Not because he became more disciplined in the old sense, but because he surrendered to his truth. He stopped fighting himself. That's the key. You have to stop pretending. You have to stop copying routines, habits, timelines that were never meant for you. You don't need their permission. You don't need to follow the blueprint just because it worked for someone else. Discipline is personal. It's not one size fits all. If you're a night person, stop trying to be a morning person. If you hate running, stop forcing yourself to run. If you can't sit still for 30 minutes, don't start with 30 minutes of meditation. Start with 2. Start with 1. But start. Because surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what is true for you. It means aligning your actions with your actual desires, your real rhythms, your honest self. Most people never get there because they're too busy performing discipline. They post the 5 a.m. workout, they brag about the cold shower. They force the journaling, the reading, the planning. But inside, they're exhausted, they're resentful, they're waiting for the day they can quit. That's not discipline. That's self-sabotage disguised as productivity. You have a choice. You can keep pretending, or you can surrender. You can stop forcing and start flowing. But it requires courage. Because surrender means admitting what you actually want. It means facing the truth about what you're willing to do, what you enjoy, what actually moves you. Most people won't do that. They'd rather follow a system, a guru, a program. Because it's easier to outsource your will than to discover it. But here's the truth. When you stop fighting yourself, you become unstoppable. You tap into a well of energy that never runs dry. You stop relying on motivation because you're no longer doing things you hate. You start building momentum because every action is in alignment. That's the key. Surrender is not passive. It's strategic. It's the release that allows for greater strength. It's the pause that creates power. Think about a boxer. If he locks his muscles, if he tenses up, he becomes slow. He becomes predictable. But when he relaxes, when he surrenders to the rhythm, he becomes fast. He becomes dangerous. His punches land with precision because he's not fighting himself. He's in flow. That's what we're after. You don't need more willpower. You don't need more punishment. You need alignment. You need surrender. So here's what you do. You sit down, you get quiet. You ask yourself, what actually works for me? Not what should work, not what works for her, for him, for the guy with 1 million followers. What works for you? When do you feel alive? When do you feel focused? What kind of movement energizes you? What kind of work feels easy? What time of day is yours? You write it down. You stop lying. And then you build your discipline around that truth. Not around shame, not around comparison, around truth. You don't need their permission. You don't need the world to change. You just need to stop resisting. You need to stop pretending. You need to stop fighting a war against yourself. Because the second you surrender, the second you align, you win. You access a resilience that doesn't depend on motivation. You access a strength that doesn't depend on punishment. It's quiet, it's steady, it's unshakable. That's the key. Surrender is not weakness. It's the highest form of discipline. It's the decision to stop pretending and start living. It's the moment you choose truth over performance, alignment over effort, flow over force. You have a choice. You can keep dragging yourself through the day, hating every minute, wondering why you can't stick with anything. Or you can stop. You can surrender, you can align, and you can finally move forward. Not because you forced yourself, but because it's who you are. It's not about weakness, it's about discipline. It's not about giving up, it's about getting real. And when you get real, you get powerful. You don't need their permission. You just need to stop fighting yourself. Chapter 3. Mastering the Flow State. You know that moment when the work disappears? When the clock blurs and the effort feels effortless? When the task itself becomes the reward and you're not working on it, you're inside it? That's not magic. That's not a gift handed down to a chosen few. That's the flow state. And it's not something you stumble into by accident. It's something you build deliberately by removing the very thing you think you need, forced discipline. You have a choice. You can white-knuckle your way through every task, grinding your teeth, forcing your attention, treating every minute like a battle. Or you can step into the current. You can align your actions with your focus so perfectly that resistance dissolves. That's the key. The flow state isn't achieved through force. It's achieved through a state of relaxed focus. It's deep engagement, not forced effort. Think of the basketball player who sinks shot after shot without thinking. Think of the programmer who codes for hours without noticing time passing. Think of the writer who types so fast the words can't keep up with the ideas. They're not forcing anything. They're in the zone. They're in flow. And you can be too. But first, you have to dismantle the mental barriers you've built around discipline. You've been taught that discipline means struggle, that it means pushing through pain, silencing desire, denying comfort. That's a lie. That kind of discipline is a cage. It creates tension, not flow. It exhausts you. It doesn't energize you. True discipline is the opposite. It's the removal of distraction. It's the creation of conditions that allow focus to arise naturally. It's not about forcing your mind to obey. It's about aligning your environment, your energy, and your intention so that focus becomes inevitable. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need their structure. You don't need their rigid schedules or their punitive routines. You need clarity. You need purpose. You need to know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Because flow doesn't come from obligation. It comes from engagement. It comes from a task that matches your skill level with a challenge that stretches you just enough. Not too easy, not too hard, just right. That's the sweet spot. That's where flow lives. And you have to design for it. You don't wait for it, you create it. Start with your environment. Remove the distractions. Not just the phone, not just the noise. Remove the mental clutter, the unresolved arguments, the unfinished tasks, the lingering doubts. Clear the deck. Create a space where your mind can breathe. Then, define the task with surgical precision. Not work on the project, not study for the exam. Be specific. Write the introduction. Solve 5 practice problems. Review Chapter 3. Clarity breeds focus. Vagueness kills flow. You have a choice. You can stay scattered, jumping from task to task, never diving deep, or you can commit. You can choose one thing and go all in. That's the key. And then remove the internal resistance. That voice that says you're not good enough. That voice that says you're tired. That voice that says you'll fail. You don't need that voice. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You just need to start. And the best way to start is not with force, but with curiosity. Approach the task like you're exploring, not like you're conquering. Ask questions. Seek solutions. Engage with the problem. Let your natural intelligence take over. That's the key. Flow is not about weakness. It's about discipline. But it's a different kind of discipline. It's the discipline of letting go. It's the discipline of trust. It's the discipline of showing up and doing the work without clinging to the outcome. You prepare. You position yourself. You create the conditions. And then you release. You let the work carry you. You stop micromanaging your focus and you allow it to emerge. That's the paradox. The more you try to force concentration, the more it slips away. The more you relax into the task, the deeper you go. It's not about weakness. It's about discipline. It's about knowing when to push and when to surrender. Think of a river. It doesn't force its way through the canyon. It flows. It finds the path of least resistance. And over time, it cuts through rock. That's the power of relaxed focus. That's the power of flow. You don't need their permission. You don't need their rigid rules. You need to trust the process. You need to trust your own mind. You have a choice. You can stay on the surface, paddling hard and going nowhere, or you can dive deep. You can let the current take you. You can enter the state where effort feels like ease, where work feels like play, where time dissolves and only the task remains. That's flow. And it's not reserved for artists or athletes or geniuses. It's available to anyone who dares to let go of force and embrace focus. Anyone who dares to remove the mental barriers. Anyone who dares to believe that discipline doesn't have to be painful, that it can be liberating, that it can be joyful. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You have a choice. You can stay stuck in the grind, or you can step into the flow. You can align your actions with your attention. You can remove distraction. You can clarify your purpose. You can approach the task with curiosity instead of resistance. And you can let go. You can trust the process. You can allow your natural intelligence to take over. That's not weakness. That's discipline. That's mastery. And it's waiting for you. You don't need their permission. You have a choice. Make it. Chapter 4. The Art of Effortless Action. You were taught that success is a grind, that it's a war against your instincts, that you must drag yourself by the collar every morning and force action through sheer will. That's the lie. And that's why so many people burn out, quit, or live with a constant, low-grade resentment. Effortless action is not the absence of work, it's the presence of alignment. It's the result of doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, without the internal battle. You have a choice. You can continue to fight yourself, or you can learn to move with the current instead of against it. That's the key. When your actions spring from your core motivations and values, effortlessness isn't laziness. It's the highest form of efficiency and mastery. It's not about weakness, it's about discipline of a different kind. It's the discipline to remove friction, to eliminate the things that don't matter, to create a system where the right action is the easiest action. Think of a master craftsman. He doesn't struggle with his tools. He doesn't force the wood. He works with the grain. His movements are precise, economical, and seemingly effortless. That's because he has aligned his skills with the nature of the material. He has removed the friction of poor technique, of the wrong tool, of distraction. He is in flow. He is in alignment. That's the state you want to achieve in every area of your life. You don't need their permission. You don't need a motivational speech. You need a system that makes the right thing inevitable. Start by identifying your core motivations. What truly drives you? Is it autonomy? Is it mastery? Is it a sense of purpose? Is it connection? Be brutally honest. Don't write down what you think you should want. Write down what you actually want. Then identify your core values. What principles guide your decisions? Is it integrity? Is it growth? Is it contribution? Is it health? Again, be honest. These are not abstract concepts. They are the compass that should direct every action. Now, audit your current actions. Are they aligned? Or are you doing things because they are expected, because they are easy, because they are familiar? This is where the tough love comes in. If your actions are not aligned with your motivations and values, you are creating friction. You are forcing yourself to swim upstream, and that is exhausting. That is the source of procrastination, of resentment, of burnout. You have a choice. You can keep swimming upstream, or you can find a path that flows with the current. The first step is elimination. Remove the things that don't align. Say no to the commitments that drain you. Delete the apps that steal your focus. Declutter the physical space that creates mental clutter. This is not about austerity. It's about creating space for what matters. That's the key. When you remove the noise, the signal becomes clear. The second step is design. Structure your environment so that the aligned action is the default action. Want to read more? Leave a book on your pillow. Want to eat better? Prep healthy meals on Sunday so the easy choice is the right choice. Want to write a book? Set up a dedicated space with everything you need and schedule it for your peak energy time. This is not about willpower. It's about removing the need for willpower. You don't need their permission to design your life. You are the architect. The third step is ritual. Create routines that signal to your brain that it's time to focus. A specific cup of tea, a particular playlist, a 5-minute breathing exercise. These rituals lower the activation energy for the desired behavior. It makes it easier to start. And starting is often the hardest part. Once you start, momentum takes over. Effortless action is not about never feeling resistance. It's about not letting resistance stop you. It's about recognizing that the feeling of resistance is often a sign that you are on the edge of growth. It's about having a system that pulls you forward, even when the initial spark is weak. You have a choice. You can wait for motivation, or you can create the conditions for action. Motivation is fleeting. Systems are reliable. Think of the people you admire, the ones who seem to achieve so much with such ease. They are not superhuman. They have simply mastered the art of alignment. They have eliminated friction. They have designed their environment. They have built rituals. They have made the right action the easy action. You can do the same. It starts with a decision to stop forcing, a decision to start aligning, a decision to remove the friction of forced discipline. When you do this, you unlock a natural, sustainable productivity. You stop dragging yourself through the day and start moving with purpose and ease. This is not about doing less. It's about doing what matters. It's about channeling your energy into the things that align with who you are and what you want. It's about working smarter, not harder. It's about mastery. Remember, you have a choice. You don't need their permission. You can start right now. Identify one action that is misaligned. Eliminate it. Design your environment for the aligned action. Create a ritual to make it easier to start. Do this consistently, and you will create a new habit, a habit that feels good because it feels right. That's the key to effortless action. It's not about laziness. It's about discipline. The discipline to align, the discipline to eliminate, the discipline to design, the discipline to ritualize. It's the highest form of efficiency. It's the path to mastery. You have everything you need. Now, go use it. The discipline paradox is not a contradiction. It's the key to unlocking a life of true freedom and mastery. Stop trying to control everything. Stop fighting yourself. Instead, align with your deepest desires. Surrender to the natural flow of your energy and watch as the impossible becomes effortless. This is the path to a life of unforced discipline, where success is not a grind, but a graceful, powerful dance. The cage is open. Step out.